the federal government had to do. When you have the federal government encouraging people to stay home and not operate their business, not engage in their livelihood, and you have governors mandate it, government has to step in and help out. I view this in a constitutional kind of context. It's almost like with eminent domain. If government takes someone's property, you have to compensate them for doing so. That it just, it's just constitutional principle. It's just property rights and about freedom. In this situation, government was telling businesses you can't operate, you can't engage in your livelihood, you can't run a family business, a small business, or whatever. So government had to step in and offer these kind of programs. There are concerns, obviously, with this. Where initially it was, as Gary I think alluded to, initially our office was spending every minute of every hour every day helping people navigate the SBA, get answers to questions, work with local lenders to get this up and running. Now the concerns are, as Gary said in his opening remarks, the biggest concern, frankly, we hear from are some businesses who were encouraged to apply for the dollars, receive the dollars, and now there's the question of, do we have to return it because, we could have potentially got financing somewhere else, which wasn't initially conveyed to them, or because they took the money because they were encouraged to do so, but they've been able to operate throughout this time and may not have needed it as bad as other businesses who weren't deemed essential, who were trying to keep people on payroll and follow the rules. But we are working real hard on trying to get a definitive answer a clear answer to that question for those type of business owners. As you know, the 7th, they extended the deadline to return money with no penalty to this Thursday. So we are hoping and working hard. Our office is we've talked with SBA, I've talked with Steve Shabbat, who's the top Republican on the Small Business Administration Committee in Congress, and trying to get a clear answer to that question in the next 24, 48 hours. And then obviously want to get a clear answer from the IRS on the tax consequences or tax liability concerns with taking the grant or the loan from the PPP program. I wish I had those definitive answers now. We just don't, but we're continuing to try to get those and get those to our constituents, to business owners, as quick as we can. Finally, just the last thing I would throw in, and then I'll be happy to take questions, Gary, is the Democrats did, in what I think is a partisan fashion, create this select committee on looking at the CARES Act and just the entire federal government's response to the COVID-19 crisis. I think it's purely political what they did. It was a total partisan party line vote. There are already 8 different entities doing oversight, which is something constitutionally we're supposed to do in Congress, oversight of the trillions of dollars being spent and the whole response of our government to the pandemic. But the Democrats felt we needed a 9th, and I think they felt we needed a 9th because they wanted to make this political. They put Congressman Clyburn as the chairman of the committee, and he's Joe Biden's biggest supporter in the United States Congress, and I would argue he's the reason that Biden has secured the nomination in the Democrat Party. So our leadership initially was toying with not even being a part of this, but Leader McCarthy had decided that we would be a part of this. And so I'm now one of the 5 Republicans on that committee. And so we start our first quasi hearing is tomorrow. And so there'll be some activity there in that committee dealing with all these programs and as I said, the entire response. So that's just to give you the other thing the final thing I would mention, I guess, is I'm very frustrated that the Speaker of the House will not call us back to work. We go in every 3 weeks to vote on some big package. The first package, this was understandable, but since then, we should be back working just like the United States Senate is, following the appropriate guidelines, but we should be back there working. Instead, everything's conference call and Zoom call and everything else, but we should be back working. And it's frustrating because I said this the other day on one interview, farmers are planting, truckers are hauling goods, and grocers are stocking shelves, and frontline healthcare workers and law enforcement and everyone else have never missed a day. But somehow the United States Congress can't go back and have committee hearings and do what we're supposed to do. It's just wrong, and we should be back there doing that, and we're going to continue to push for that. With that, I'll yield back to you, Gary, and I'll be happy to entertain a few questions.
Okay. We actually have a function where you can raise your hand if you want to do that, and we could recognize you, and you could either start to talk or unmute yourself. But I'll go ahead and start with a question, Congressman, if that's okay, with one you already mentioned about returning money as it relates to having finances somewhere else. Because I know in the early stages that was a concern that was raised, and I listened to many webinars, and in the end that was not a criteria for applying. Even if you had lines of credit, you were eligible for applying for the PPP. So if I heard you correctly, now that's in question. So if you had lines of credit that you hadn't utilized, but you've gotten a PPP, that's a potential requirement for needing to send it back?
Gary, we are trying to get an answer to that very question. Okay. And we've been working on that for a week because that's what, that was something that was not conveyed to people initially, but has been since conveyed. And so we're trying to get an answer to that. And like I said, we've been working on it. Okay. We just don't have it yet. And you can imagine businesses are concerned about this and trying to make a decision, and they got a reprieve. So there's either, I believe we're going to get, I guess one of three options. There's not going to be any clear understanding by Thursday. There is going to be a clear understanding by Thursday, or they're going to give another extension. And we just don't know what that, what it is yet, but we're trying to figure that out.
So is there a resource where, like, that's the first I had heard about that particular criteria. I knew it was out there, but it's the first that I've heard could be a reason to need to send money back. Is there a site where we as business owners that have applied for this, because in addition to doing the economic development, I own a business and I've applied and received, but like I don't know where to go to find that. So is there somewhere you can direct us?
To Barbara in our office, and we're working with, I wish there was, you can, we've been trying to get an answer. We've talked with the SBA. We have talked with people in the state in Columbus. We've talked with all kinds of folks, and we continue to work on it. And I think we have, is Barbara or Kirby or who's on the line here from our office?
Barbara and
Dee. I'm on, and Dee Dee's also on.
Is Dee Dee on as well? Okay. Dee Dee, do you have or Barbara, do you have an answer? Anything that you can elaborate on more than I said?
Dee Dee, you want to answer that?
Nothing further, I don't think.
Yeah, we don't really have any definitive answer yet. No.
Yeah, that was kind of my concern. So another criteria that from the very beginning was back and forth. I have two different documents, one dated the 14th, one the 15th, that said completely 180-degree different things, even about the definition of payroll costs, where federal withholding, FICA, Medicare were not included, and then they were included. So I know that's another one that I hope you've got your finger on. And then the third thing that I heard on this call last week was the taxability of this money. It was not supposed to be taxable, but now it sounds like they're saying it's not taxable, but the expenses used from these proceeds are non-deductible, which in effect makes it taxable. So that's a third concern I had.
Yeah, and Gary, we're trying to get answers to. We want to get a clear, definitive. Our goal is a clear, definitive answer to all three of those questions. And as you would expect, we have, lots of businesses who are raising the same exact question. When this thing, because they stood this up so quickly, and plus it's government and bureaucracy, it never goes as smooth as you would like. But the basic outlines were you've been impacted by, you attest to the fact that you've been impacted by the coronavirus, your business. You're going to use the money you receive to keep 75% of the majority of your people on, employees on payroll, and you're going to use it for rent and the benefits for those certain things you could use it for. And people did that, and now these further questions come up. So that's been the problem, and as we said a few times now, we're trying to get the answers.
Okay. Well, Barbara and Dee Dee, if as those answers come, they'll come through you guys first. If you want to send those to me, and then I can get those out to Miranda at the Galleon Crestline Chamber and Jesse at the Bucyrus Chamber, and then the three organizations can get that out to our businesses probably most effectively. And we know who's on the call here, I believe. So we can be that local resource.
Yeah, Gary, Dee Dee and I will get on that. I've got a resource to call, and she and I'll get on it, and then we'll maybe meet with you or something like that, as long as you stay 6 feet away.
We can do that. I think Randy and Jesse would agree to it.
Okay. All right. We'll get on. We'll get back to you probably Wednesday or tomorrow or Thursday.
Okay. Are there any other big, I mean, we just hit on 2 or 3 of the big topics. Are there other ones that I wouldn't even know about? Because I'm kind of hearing about these third hand. Are there any others that you can think of that haven't been mentioned?
No, those Gary, those were the big ones that we're hearing about and we're working on. The only other sort of news is the Democrats are going to pass, it looks like on Friday, another big spending package. This one, unlike the other two, will be completely partisan, no input from Republicans, and I haven't even seen it, but it was just announced that she's calling us back in for a vote on Friday morning, and so when we get more information on that, we'll pass it along. But it's not something I'm gonna support. It's basically just purely partisan and kind of a messaging bill that they're giving dollars to many of their favorite constituencies around the country.
Okay. Are there any questions from any of the attendees for the congressman?
Congressman, hey, this is Jeff Reeser. How are you?
Hey, Mayor, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I read over the weekend, I mean, Gary, maybe you know the answer too. There's still, of the second package for the PPP, there's still money left. Is that true?
I believe that's accurate. I heard yesterday, in light of this concern that businesses have on whether they can keep the dollars or be penalized for, keep the dollars if that they received earlier, because they've been able to operate and maybe they haven't seen haven't had to furlough any of their employees, but they're still concerned about consequences as a result of this virus.
Sure.
That over the past weekend there were actually more people returning money than there were new people signing up. Now, how many dollars are in the fund? I don't have that number available. How much money is still in the fund? I just don't know that at this point.
So if someone still
but
wants,
I thought it was interesting that more are returning than are actually signing up at this point.
Yeah. But I did read where the average award is much smaller this time around, because the big guys got in there and got theirs first and kind of crowded everybody out. And so would it be safe to say that if someone still wants to apply for it, they could do that?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay. Good deal. I know.
I ask a question based on Jeff's and your response that people are returning. I'm a little confused by that, because like in my personal application of the money, I'm using it for payroll where I would have laid people off, but I didn't. So
right.
To me, that determines that I needed it, because otherwise I would have laid off, tapped into my state unemployment, which sounds like now our state may be borrowing from the federal. And I remember in 2008 when this same situation happened, where for the next 3 years, kind of the aftermath was I was helping the state repay the federal government, and it cost me as a business owner, in the likelihood of $10,000 to $12,000 extra. So I have those memories that, to me, even though I feel like, yeah, maybe I could return some, it's like, well, no, I can't, because otherwise I wouldn't have had these expenses otherwise that I I have. So I'm confused by that returning.
Yeah. No, I think because the communication that was sent out by the Treasury Secretary, some individuals around the country were scared. Some of them probably, frankly, didn't need the money. A different situation than you described for your business, Gary. Probably didn't need the money, but you know how quickly this was going, and they were working with their bank, and they were applying it, and it was like, we're getting the money out the door because everyone was so concerned about the impact to families and small businesses, to our economy. Now, obviously, our economy is taking a big hit anyway, but less of a hit because of this program. So that was the motivation behind it. And now with the communication that was sent out 2 weeks ago by the Treasury Secretary, what got people concerned. So some folks are in fact returning the dollars. I mean, and then you've heard of some of the big people. You know, you had the Harvard return money. Now this is a different program, but in this program you had Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, you had Shake Shack, you had some of these entities return the dollars who had initially received it.
Yeah.
But everybody I talked to is grateful for it. They think it's a great program. I'm speaking for Sandusky Avenue and around Bucyrus. It's it's a godsend for us, and I know Gary would echo that too for his business and throughout the county. But it's going to make a huge difference keeping a lot of people in business. I can tell from personal experiences. I'll echo what Gary said. It made all the difference in the world for us. So we thank you.
And just establishing a confidence in an uncertain time. I mean, and for most businesses, the business cycle, like, I'm really not sure how this is going to impact my business because my showroom's been closed for 2 months. Fortunately, we've been around for 44 years, so we get people that just call our cell phones. But the reality is it's probably going to be late July, August before I know the impact of what's happening in April and May. And to be able to have to return now and not be able to even get to the end of the 8-week period, that's real concern, I think.
Yeah, sure. Gary, that is, you described it. That is the situation. Other business owners are giving the same description, like, because you don't know what this is going to mean. You knew that you had a real concern when you signed up for it in good faith. You attested to the fact that this is going to impact my business. It has, but you don't know what the long-term implications are. And maybe during this short time, it wasn't as negative as you thought, but there was still a concern long-term. So that's why we're trying so hard to get a clear answer.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Any other questions from attendees?
Yeah, Gary, Congressman Jordan, this is Mike Zappa.
Hey, Mike.
With regards to the monies that you're talking and returning, the 75% on a payroll basis, am I understanding that if it's, for some reason you don't meet the 75% at the end of the deadline, is it all expected to be turned into a loan, or is it expected to be returned, or am I understanding that right, or how does that work? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, my understanding is that it won't be viewed as a grant at that point. It'll be viewed as a loan, and you'll have to pay it back, the loan money back. But you don't have to give it all back. You got to pay it back like a loan over some time with some very low interest rate. But if you use it and follow the guidelines of keeping the majority of your employees on payroll, you can use it for rent payments. You can use it for the benefits for your employees. If it's used in that fashion, then it's a grant. It's not a loan at all at that point.
But if you don't, I don't want to say this, if you don't meet the 75% in this case of payroll, is it the money that's owed back, the difference between what you used on payroll and what you didn't, or does it all go into a loan aspect as far as payback?
No, good question. Do we have Barbara, Didi? Can you give an answer to that? Because my initial, I wanted to say that you have to pay it all back, but that seems a little strange, because if you kept most of the of your employees on, didn't furlough most, so most of your employees you didn't furlough, but you didn't quite hit the threshold of 75, do you have to return it all, or just, is it prorated? Another way of asking it.
I
don't
think it's
know.
prorated. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
prorated in some of the,
But that would be common
things
sense.
that we have here. Yeah,
That would
I'll
make
double
common
check
sense.
that.
but
Can I
Yeah.
make a
Let's double
suggestion? this is Jeff Reeser again. Yeah, this has been,
Yeah.
we've kind of, and Gary, I know, if you disagree with me, go ahead and tell me, but, working with our accountant, it's all about the dollar amount and then the FTEs, the full-time equivalents. And from what I understand, through our accountant, Roger Miller here, that you have to hit them both. And over the 8 weeks. So I think it's either, from what I understand, it's either a forgivable loan or an entire loan if you don't make the thresholds. That's from what I've read and what I've been told, but I could be wrong there.
No, that was my initial understanding, but I just hadn't had that specific question, and the more I thought about it, it would seem that you would almost want to be a prorated approach to it. But I actually think Jeff may be right on this, but we want to double check and just make sure.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Yes. You're saying that you have to meet both thresholds, that you couldn't use 100% of it on payroll, that you
No.
have to use 75-25?
I think, it's 75. It has to be at least, I believe it's at least 75. Then the other 20, then the other part can go to interest, rent, and utilities.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you could
So-
use
so
100%.
What we're doing in our business, and I'll speak as a business owner now, we know exactly how much we have to meet on payroll, not just on dollar amount, but you have to have the hours there too, the full-time equivalent. So it can, you got to have a good accountant working with you on this. So unfortunately, we do. I know there's a lot of good ones out there, but it's a great program. Just dot your I's and cross your T's, and you'll be fine. It's a real blessing to any small business. But as anything, there's going to be rules, and I don't think the rules are onerous on this. You just need to be sure, and then get your accountant to double check your FTEs and your math with it. So that would be my recommendation.
Well said, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, I got to jump on another one here in a minute or two, but I maybe for one more. If there's another
One last question. I can tell you we really appreciate your time to at least listen to those concerns, and I think between the taxability of the money, the true definition of the payroll cost, whether it's healthcare, retirement, the employer side, the FICA, federal withholding, is that all going to be included as part of that 75% payroll? This prorated question that Mike Zappa asked, which is a great one. So keep those in mind as you negotiate with those in Washington, and thanks for everything you do for us.
Hey, real quick, can you hear me?
Is that Miranda? Go ahead, Miranda.
Yeah, it's Miranda Jones, Gallion Crest Lane Chamber. Jim, just something Congressman Jordan, keep in mind, 501c6s were left out of the first couple rounds. So I know chambers of commerce across the country are struggling as well. So just something to put in there if there's another round to go through.
Okay. No, we've that's been brought to our attention. We appreciate it. Hey, thank you all, and we'll get Barbara and Dee Dee will get answers to you as soon as we get them. And like I said, the one question on the 14th is, and all these questions are critical to know before or as soon as possible. So we'll keep working and get that information to probably to Gary and Miranda and anyone else who calls directly. But we'll get it to the Chamber and Economic Development folks. Thanks again for all you do, and we'll look forward to getting through this, getting back to normal, and I can get back up to Crawford County and visit with y'all. Take care.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you very much, Congressman.
Thank you.
And thank you all for
Okay,
joining.
Gary.
And yes, Barbara.
Gary, Dee Dee and I will get together. I've written down all these questions, and we'll get together, like I say, before the end of the week and see if we can find answers, and if we can't, to tell you that we don't have the answers yet.
Okay.
So we'll do that.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and hopefully some of that discussion everyone found beneficial.
Thanks,
Great,
Gary.
Gary. Thank you.
All right. Everyone have a great day.